Hi, I'm welcoming you in SmartBear Talks, where we are continue talking about API load testing mistakes with Robert Schneider from WiseClouds. And today we will talk about the third mistakes. If you missed the previous two mistakes, watch the previous videos. Hi, Robert. How are you today?
I'm fine. How about everybody else out there? Hope you're all doing really well. So, looking forward to today to talking about a very common problem we see, which is failing to test multiple API load generation strategies. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when people are testing their APIs under load, if they are testing their APIs under load, I should say, but if and when, what they're doing is picking a load generation strategy that may not be related to what they actually will see in at production and at runtime. The most common scenario is if you're using a product like Ready API and Load UI within that, people will go with the default fixed API load generation strategy, wherein the test comes awake and it spends however many virtual users or arriving virtual processes you've defined, and it will just send that for forever. It'll go on as long as you want your load test. But the thing is, in the real world, we don't normally see interactions with APIs in a steady state. I mean, perhaps that's what it is for you, but most applications, most organizations are going to see very different styles of load, maybe with even the same application, but at different times of the day or different times of the year. So you can imagine scenarios where maybe you've got a steady ramp up of users. Perhaps you have a system that is meant to support people during the workday, for example, right? So imagine when the day starts, some people come in early, this is of course within the world of that we're living in now, maybe they're working from remote home, whatever it might be. But whatever the scenario is, people come in a kind of a graduated roll up of load. So they start maybe with a very light load, and then as the day goes on, it gets very higher and higher, and then it goes steady, and then it tapers off as the day comes to an end. There are capabilities in Ready API to test that exact scenario I just described. When you do fixed, you're missing all that ramp up and ramp down. But you can use the load generation strategies in Ready API to simulate that exactly, right? So that's one of many potential load scenarios you might have. I'll give you another one. Let's imagine you're building an application that is meant to, let's say it's working with some kind of transportation system where everybody shows up at once to go through maybe a card reader for a metro system, right? They all come in, maybe a game has ended or some kind of theater thing has ended, and they've all come and they're going through the turnstiles or whatever that thing is. What that would be, we would call that a burst, right? Very low levels of activity followed by a huge spike, followed by maybe a steady state, followed by an immediate drop off. Another scenario, a lot of times people don't test that. And you find out in runtime and in production that, oh, as it turns out, we really weren't able to scale for that level of API load that we saw from the real world. The thing is, again, with a product like Ready API, you have that ability to test those kinds of scenarios.
Okay, so it's for me. I'm not an expert in Ready API. I know how API may work. That's why my question may become a bit like a question from dummies. Sorry for this. For me, it sounds like when you have one API, try to test it by using different scenarios, but at the same time. It's like in parallel.
You can do it in parallel, you can do it sequential. A lot of times people don't really know what they're going to see in production. Maybe it's a new application. So why not see how your application does in a ramp up, see how it does in steady state, see how it does with a ramp down, see how it does with a burst of activity. And a lot of times, again, through no fault of their own, because people are busy and they're under a lot of time pressure, we know all that. They just simply choose the default setting in Ready API, which is just give me a steady state of load, which is fine. But again, as a lot of things in testing APIs, especially under load, experiment, right? It's very easy in the product to choose from the dropdown and say, let's move this from a ramp up or a fixed load. Let's put it under burst and see what happens. Oh, it turns out we put it under burst. If we're going to get a big spike of traffic at a particular time in the day, we're not going to be able to handle that. Maybe our cloud resources are not elastic enough to grow or shrink back. There's so many things you can find out by doing this, but you will never know any of this if you don't experiment and try it out and learn from what the tool is telling you.
Okay, experiment and you will learn the new world.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thanks a lot for explaining these mistakes, and we have two more. Stay tuned.
Okay, we'll see you soon.